so much. Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much for
Thank you
being a
very
part
much.
of this panel discussion. And I hope at the end of this discussion, we have some good insights and good perspectives that come out. With that, what I'll do is that I'll briefly introduce Deininger Consulting to you all. Some of you all know, some of you all don't know, and then also set the context for this e-panel discussion. Deininger Consulting is an international executive search firm and executive search and leadership consulting firm. And we are about 40 years, we've been in existence for about 40 years and present in most of the global markets. In India, we have been there for 12 years and we have, have had very good credentials with automotive, manufacturing, infrastructure, financial services, consumer and technology organizations. Speaking, our entire world revolves around leadership. And in this scenario, we thought that in this testing time, it's the leadership's mettle which is being put to test across all sectors. And we thought that we had a role to play in this and create a platform where all leaders like you can come in together and discuss your perspectives in terms of how y'all are managing this situation. Two things that we will be discussing over here. One, to understand how y'all are pretty much managing the COVID-19, or what are the challenges that you're looking at from a business and people perspective during this COVID-19 situation, and how you all are managing this. And the second, what are some of the likely trends that you see which are going to pave the way for the new order of business, the new way of working? These are the two broad areas that we will delve into. With that, I'd like to, start with kickstart the discussion by asking the panel to share your perspectives as to how you've been managing the business operations in this lockdown scenario. Tojo, would you like to take that question first?
Yeah, no problem. Thanks a lot, and happy to be here.
Yeah.
I think need of the hour is definitely because of the kind of scenario that we are going through. It is unprecedented. So nothing like getting multiple heads together under the same roof and ideate and think and exchange notes, because nobody has, no single person has all the answers to what we are going through.
Absolutely.
So I'll sort of bring a perspective into our organization, because when the lockdown happened in India, we employ around 16,000 employees. So when the lockdown happened, one of the first things that happened was and obviously for employees from across the country to reach out and say, what the hell is happening? When is it going to get lifted and all that? So a couple of things that we did, fortunately for us now looking back, one was that for the month of March, we just couple of days before the lockdown was formally announced, we had paid the 50% of the salary as salary advance. So that came in, I mean, it was just a sheer coincidence, and it came in really handy for people because suddenly they found themselves to be stuck at home with inability to move out and so on. So that came in really handy. And second thing that we did was that we decided that let's use this time for skill enhancement. So what we did was we tied up with Coursera, we gave the connect to all employees, and we got them to get themselves engaged, because one of the worst things that can happen is sit idle with nothing to do, with your mind playing tricks on you. So we wanted that to be channelized positively. So we got as of last week, numbers are small considering that we have 16,000 people, but 250 odd people have done certification during this period. Third thing that we did was because of the widespread of our people across the country, from HR team, we decided that we would connect with all the 16,000 employees over a call. So that's what we did from HR. We called up each of the 16,000 people. Of course, it happened over a period of 3 to 4 weeks. But end of the day, all 16,000 employees of ours were called from HR by HR, inquiring about their well-being, inquiring about any help support that they needed, and so on and so forth, which was very well taken. And the impact of it, I suddenly realized, was when today we have both husband and wife working. So they could score a brownie point, as in our employees, Muthutians as we call, could score a brownie point because their spouse was not getting a similar call from the company that they're working. So suddenly, at home they had a brownie point to score, saying that, look at my company, they are reaching out and checking on me, where what happened to your company, the out of sight, out of mind kind of thing. And last but not the least was, and that fortunately was something which happened by accident, but we converted into a regular thing, was daily musings, which I used to send out as from CHRO's desk, a daily musing. So something which is positive, something which would take the minds of people away from the current trauma that all of us are going through. You won't believe it. It gave me a lot of positivity, because in between I was also finding myself to be sort of drifting and thinking, what the hell are we going through, and how come all of us are suffering like this? But that sheer ability of discipline of getting up in the morning every day between 7 and 7:30, I used to release this daily musings to the leadership team, and that kept me going. And I started getting tremendous feedback from all, saying that, we are looking forward, along with the morning cup of coffee and the newspaper, the daily musing is something which we are looking forward to. So these were some of the multiple things that we did to keep people engaged and going during the lockdown period.
Anil, we have two Anils. So Mr. Anil Mishra, would you like to add to that? I mean, what has your organization, some of the initiatives that your organization has taken?
Yeah, Rita, would love to. First of all, thank you so much for having me in this call.
Yeah.
And wonderful to kind of, interact with rest of the fellow panel members. And, probably, there would be a lot of takeaway for all of us as HR practitioners. Now, going back to my current organization, see, it's a consumer internet sector, but of course we are in online real estate company. It's been 13 years we are in the business, operating out of Noida. That's where our head office is. Otherwise, we are present in 13 cities in India. Just like any other sector, this is sector agnostic. When we also realize that there is lockdown all around, ultimately, during the time of the year, there are few critical people processes which we really wanted to address. One was, typically for a CHRO, the critical people process activity would be annual appraisal. So the performance management system. So people would expect every year, 1st of April, we would roll out our increment letters. So this year also, people were expecting that. But somehow, keeping the business realities in mind, ultimately we had to take a conscious call that, we will have to defer this by 2 quarters. So, so did that probably go well with people? I don't know, but everybody seemed, they are in tune with, what the corporate or what the leadership decision has been in this regard. But definitely people are, I tend to believe, not happy, but they realize that, in the current scenario, this is for the larger good cause. Probably this is the best thing to do. We did not communicate that, we would not be doing, but what we said is we are deferring it by, 2 quarters. And I'm also sure, most of you have this practice. During January, February, normally for the next financial year, we put our brains together and we come up with a annual operating plan. So plenty of good stuff, starting from talent acquisition to how do we retain our talent and employee engagement to learning and development to, plenty of other investment. Purely from people process standpoint, we discuss, we deliberate, and we plan those activities. Now, that has gone for a toss because of those, COVID situation, the uncertainty around us. And now we have to redo that entire exercise. But, we started, now again in the month of April, we thought that, we need to revisit that. And hence, my hiring plan, I had to reprioritize it in terms of my P1, P2, P3. Something which is a revenue-driven role, probably that falls in my P1. priority. And hence, even though right now I do not get any opportunity to interact with any of the candidate, but I have got a 18-member talent acquisition team. What I'm doing right now is proactively building a pipeline of people who are interested to get into this kind of a role. So that's how, that's a unique way of, typically tracking my talent acquisition team efficacy. So even if, you don't need to roll out an offer, but if you have candidates ready for CEO's level, then that's a good indicator. And for all P1 positions, what we are doing is 5 candidates readily in the pipeline. That has been the target in most of the P1 positions. We have been successful in building a pipeline, and in few others, we are still working. Now, we have in our performance management process, there is a performance linked pay. So what it means is every quarter, there would be a certain percentage of your total fixed amount, your CTC, that would be paid basis your contribution against those committed objective, the KRAs. We cascade it every quarter. Now, we took a conscious call that, for Q4 2019, because the COVID situation actually has hit us towards the fag end of Q4. And hence, we took a conscious call that we would go ahead and we would make payment. And at an org level, on an average, the percentage used to be hovering around 95% for that specific quarter. But in Q4, we paid 90. So marginal reduction in the budget. So that has gone well. But we felt it is equally important. See, for an e-commerce consumer internet kind of a company, my 2 major overheads are, if we have to look at the budget wise, number one is my people cost. Roughly around 60% of my total expense would be people cost, and probably 30% would be my marketing, my PR, those kind of a cost. So what we wanted to do is, keeping those realities in mind, specifically in consumer internet, the revenue took a dip to the tune of 90%. That means, sales folks, which is 70% of our total headcount out of 1,400 employee base, 70% of them are literally not allowed to venture out. And hence, the sales targets were completely, the revenue were completely, that has gone for a toss. So we communicated very, very clearly that, Q1 of 2020, again, we were forced to defer the TVP. We call it targeted variable payout. So that amount has been shifted to Q3 of 2020. That means in the month of October, basis the extent of recovery that we would do, we would take a call and, probably we'll go ahead and make that payment. So that's the second thing. So, but the larger challenge still for HR folks remains, how do we connect with our people? And hence, I strongly believe in the fact that, there is no over communication during this crisis, because, everybody is wanting to get updates about your business, about will there be any job losses, will I be impacted, what would be my percentage of increment, and these are the support I need, insurance and other related support I need from the company. And hence, just like what Tojo was mentioning, we felt that we have the concept of business HR, and respective business HR, they thought of getting in touch with all their colleagues, and and the CEO has sent across communication giving highlights about company performance, and how we are a cash rich company and how we can sustain even if there is no business for the next quarter, and hence there would not be any pay cut or those kind of a discussion. However, the critical people related aspect, that decision was given to me, and I had to communicate with a larger audience. But I thought it makes a lot of sense to first cascade this communication with my management team, with my GM and specific and above level people. First, I organized a similar Google Hangout call, and I sensitized them about the business scenario and why we are doing what we are doing with regard to few of the critical business processes. And surprisingly, that has gone well with people, and unanimously these guys felt that, that is the right thing to do, then life becomes easier for the CHRO. Then these are the guys who took it to their respective team in their morning huddle, and they communicated about the critical people aspect. Now, during this critical time, just like any other organization, we did not compromise on the learning. We said, okay, we cannot step out, but with the aid of those technology that is available, why don't we go ahead and run some e-learning modules, some mandatory training programs that we have our own e-learning modules. And there are also, during this crisis, we observed that plenty of learning and development solution providing organizations provided this learning experience free of cost. So like Coursera or probably those programs anyhow we were running, but still on top of that there were few startups who came forward and who customized these programs for us. And similarly for employee engagement, every week we started running our virtual corporate tombola and then plenty of other activities. So that is a big hit with people. And surprisingly, I don't mind taking the name. CureFit of this kind of an organization also has, they have customized program, and we offer that free of cost. So it's more like a win-win kind of a proposition. But the bigger challenge, long story cut short, how do we communicate or over-communicate? How do we create hope? And at the same time, any people decision we take, whether it impacts an individual or not, how can we tell them that, this is a temporary phenomenon, will definitely be back, probably bigger and better than before. And creating hope is very, very important. And mind you, at this time, we are 100% aware, we understand the fact that the credibility of leadership, credibility of HR is also under a scanner. If you talk about the colleagues, that's what, is a top priority for them. And hence, all the decisions that we took, definitely these were the things that we kept in the back of our mind while, communicating with a larger audience. Now, in interest of time, I'll take a pause here. And I hope, I was able to share, what we are doing at the 30,000 level. Feel free to ask me any questions if we have time.
I'm leaving it open for any one of you all to pick up from where Anil has left off. Prashant, Akila, Ruben, Anil, would you, in fact, Prashant, Akila, Ruben, any one of you would, because y'all are coming from a little different sector, which is the fintech sector. So give us your perspective. We have understood the financial services and the consumer internet perspective. It would be great to understand the fintech perspective as well, the people and the business challenges from you, Anil. So Prashant, maybe you can start with the people challenges, or from the HR perspective.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure. So I come from product SaaS company, software as a service. So this has a very different challenge. Fortunately, this industry not being so there's knowledge intensive, but not so much people intensive in the sense that we don't have large number of people. It's a product company and quite used to cloud tools. So most of the things that we do is on cloud tools. So fortunately, we don't prepare a Microsoft Word document and share it as a attachment on email for your review or your notes. We send out a Google Docs or Google Sheets and people edit and collaborate. So that way, movement to work from home was very seamless, very quick. We started around 12th of March itself. After that, in terms of engaging with people, there is a fixed schedule of virtual coffee session, virtual engagement session, so Skip, Pulse, all those things happen. Fortunately, in the month of January itself, we moved to an online collaborative quarterly business review, monthly business review process. So people from all over the world, for their review, they will log in. There is a Google Docs created, and everyone in the first 15 minutes will go through, comment, and then question answer starts. So technology-wise, work culture-wise, it was a seamless move for us. What is the biggest challenge is in the external market? So for example, if the likes of any consumer brand company, whether it is Magic Bricks or whether it's a Starbucks, or whether it is PVR or Hotstar, any one of these, if their business comes down because of being in the physical world and less being in virtual world, it will impact us.
Oh,
And the economy and
think
business
that?
is significantly impacted. Now, the sales team, the business development teams, they try to do virtual demo of the product. They try to connect with the clients virtually. But let's keep in mind, these are sometimes, few $100,000 of investment by any consumer brand. And they would want to be face to face. So those are the real challenges. And I'm sure many of us, or rather most of us, would see drop in our sales and revenue. Unless we are in a business of serving people purely on survival and coronavirus. Even a pharmaceutical company which is selling vitamins or antibiotics may suffer. So everyone is there out to suffer. I mean, when a country like Japan gives stimulus, which is a big double digit of their GDP, then the situation is extremely, extremely bad. We haven't seen the worst of it in terms of impact. Imagine life in Bombay, even if lockdown is partially removed. People travel in trains. And in this kind of a contagious, disease, what will happen to the population? Who will want to come to there? So contactless as a theme, in terms of business transaction, in terms of work transaction, in terms of way to go, will gain significantly. Anything which can be done without human touch, human contact, or not physically present will be huge. Job losses will be there.
Yes.
Significant job losses will be there. How long can business organizations be able to sustain the cost, especially companies that are 30%, 40, 50, 60% of their revenue is on people cost. Okay. So industry-wide, the challenges will be different, but we will have to gear up to see or deal with, absolutely different kind of a world and challenges.
Absolutely. Anil, what about your business? I mean, how has your business been impacted? You are take us just briefly tell us what is your business about?
Yeah, so Flex Salary, which is our flagship product from Vivify India.
Yeah.
We are focused on consumer lending. This is primarily focused on salaried individuals and self-employed kind of micro entrepreneurs. Typically, what we do is a small line of credit. Our average income, we are very focused on customers with really low incomes. So our average income for our customers is about 20,000 rupees. So these customers typically do not have access to credit, primarily from the large banks as well as the traditional NBFCs, because either their credit scores are low or their employer is not a grade 1 employer, or mainly because their incomes are lower. So we focus on such consumer segments and have built a complete digital lending platform where the entire onboarding process is digital, and there are some touch points, especially when RBI moved away from the eKYC process. We had to reinvent with some physical touch points on the onboarding side. But our focus has been to serve these underserved, unserved customers by offering them a financial product that will be right-sized to them. Essentially, since it's a line of credit, the customer actually chooses how much to pay, when to pay, and it's an EMI-free kind of a loan. So just a little bit of background. I have spent most of my time in the US subprime lending market, once more consumer lending. And I still sit on a board of a consumer lending fintech in the US. So I have a perspective of both the markets. However, I'll focus mostly on India right now. But in our scenario, especially we are working with an underserved, unbanked, underbanked customer. However, since most of our processes were digital, our customer interaction has continued to be seamless. And since we were a fintech company, a lot of our employees were all already equipped to work from home. Our call center, it was something that we were always equipped, but was never tested at this scale. So I'd commend my HR and infrastructure teams that have been able to transform our business very quickly, so that we are now operating at about 95 to 100% of our capacity, uh, continuing to um, continuing to serve our customers. However, the challenges for us are not about working or how the work is getting executed. It's about uh, the overall economic scenario, right? We
Yeah.
are working through a scenario in which RBI has announced a moratorium on loan payments. So, uh, so there is a huge challenge if you're a lender like us, who's lending on our own balance sheet and not necessarily just passing on leads to other NBFCs and banks. So there is a huge risk of non-payments in a very tough economic scenario, which obviously in some ways it's a very good move to give moratorium in a time like this, but it comes with its own challenges. You need to keep continuously engaged with your customer. So a lot of our focus has been to try and enhance that process. Um, if someone's wanting to opt into moratorium, the RBI mandated moratorium, we try to help them understand what are the benefits or the negatives of it. One of the big negatives is you continue to accrue interest. So 3 months down the line, you probably are looking at a much larger loan payment or a much longer loan payment than what you are signed up for right now. So there is a lot of consumer education that is going on. And to do that, we need to make sure all our customers facing employees get the right kind of messaging and training. So that's the challenge that we are trying to overcome. However, that a lot of it has been happening fairly smoothly. Since one of the advantage of our product, as I said, it's an EMI-free loan. The customer can choose how much to pay, when to pay. The strength of that product is getting highlighted right now because the customers are truly choosing, okay, this is a tough time, I will conserve on cash, so let me only make an interest and fee payment, or maybe I'll make a small principal payment. But this is in the short term scenario. But as Prashant was referring to, in the longer term, especially in a socially distanced world, till a vaccine or some sort of a cure comes about, we are going to be in this sustained challenging environment. While we are all set up perfectly fine to onboard a customer completely digitally, and we also, even our KYC process, thanks to RBI, is now a video KYC. So there is no physical touch point anymore. However, the challenge is, will there be unemployment? If I'm looking at the US, we are looking at 26 million unemployment claims in a 4-week period. In 2009, I was in that economy, lending in that economy. The peak weekly unemployment claims were 700,000. Look at the scale of the demand destruction and the income dislocation that has happened. From a peak 2008-9 crisis, which is a severe crisis as we all remember, the peak unemployment filings were in a week 700,000. Over a period of time, there were about 38 million unemployment claims. Now in a 4-week period, that was over an 18-month period. Now in a 4-week period, the US economy has seen 26 million unemployment claims. Now this is the challenge. It hasn't transpired the same way to us in India yet, but I completely agree with Prashant that there is going to be a long-term pain that we should feel from this. And what happens in an environment like this is, it's not just income destruction or income dislocation, there will be demand destruction. Because if people do not have money, what will they spend on? And more importantly, I think that's even a secondary point. In a lockdown scenario, what are people going to spend on? There is nothing much to spend on, and we are already subscribed to Netflix and Hotstar to take care of our streaming services. But other than your essentials, there is nothing much to spend on.
Absolutely.
So if you are if you are a financial services company, fintech company, uh, unless the economy is productively employed and is consuming at a regular rate, a lack of demand is something that will really hurt you. So that is the challenge that is staring in our face. So unless the innovation is going to come in terms of how you define your products, it's not just about technology anymore. I mean, I think what this kind of awakens everybody, right? There is not going to be much of a difference between a financial services company, a fintech, and bank, because if you can't meet your customer across the table, everyone will be forced to do what we are doing right now. We are all going to onboard our customers digitally over video and everything else. So there might not be much of a differentiator between a fintech and a bank at the end of it. So how are you going to address that challenge if you're a fintech? So these kinds of things are what we need to focus on. And I mean, I'll try to come back to some of the things that we are doing as well as how we see the marketplace later on. But I just wanted to set the table, kind of taking what Prashant has alluded to, that how will we reinvent ourselves when an economy for a 2 to 4 quarter period will not be in its normal behavioral status.
It's a very interesting point that you have come out with. I mean, we are not just talking about remote working and managing operations remotely. We are now talking about managing sales and marketing also remotely, which has more been a face-to-face kind of a scenario wherein people have, had to close sales by meeting people, meeting each other, meeting their clients, etc., meeting their customers. Which brings me to a very pertinent question to you, Ruben. Insurance industry has been always, while it has moved digital to a large extent, but the final closure comes when a person meets face to face with the insurance agent, etc. Very people intensive. Similarly, Akila, would want to understand from your perspective also that how are people like you or even a Muthoot Papachan group, where gold loan is the biggest business, wherein the face-to-face meeting with the customer is extremely important. How are you all going to manage this scenario? Vis-a-vis, I mean, looking at your cost constraints, looking at the very fact that the business is not happening. How are you able to manage between the cost constraints and the business operatives? How are you all balancing that, the cash flows and the profitability of the organization? How are you all moving to a more digital world, if I may say so?
Just to highlight, I think we've always been a digital platform. We've been in the digital lending space, but I think the impact of this is it's given us a greater opportunity, I think, to kind of quickly look at diversifying into other aspects. So while we were doing only digital lending, now I think we're offering to our customers a whole range of other products that they can sort of really choose from. So we become like a one-stop shop for all their financial services needs. So while of course there is really a challenge that is there, it also has, I think, thrown upon us a larger opportunity to kind of quickly diversify, given that we've always sort of been digital. So we are, along with lending, sort of really looking at providing to our customers COVID insurance, for example, for as less as 499 rupees, tying up with insurance companies, allowing them to kind of really purchase digital gold online or sort of really look at investing in mutual funds. So I think it has provided us opportunities, but at the same time, of course, there is this challenge in terms of obviously not necessarily meeting your customers face to face and sort of really closing the sale. Traditionally, I think we've sort of lent to companies where we've gone in and stuck a tie-up with them, saying that if you have a large employee base, we can sort of really look at taking care of their financial needs through a loan. But I think that conversation has now sort of really shifted to not just loans, but looking at providing other sort of products as well that would sort of help out. But having said that, I think the challenge will also be given the fact that not everybody is operating and there sort of seems to be uncertainty. Nobody wants to kind of really take a decision just yet. So I think it's a question of wait and watch to see how things sort of really unfold in the future, per se. But of course, I guess every challenge sort of puts an opportunity. It's a question of how do you sort of look at that opportunity and try and be nimble and flexible and adapt in order to kind of really sustain in these challenging times.
I have a specific question for you, Ruben, and you, Tojo. Y'all are more in a retail world, it's a retail intensive business that y'all do. Given the world given we're getting into a place where digital seems to be the way consumers are going, do you see a lot more collaboration? And Anil, you can also feel free to pitch into this. Collaboration between a fintech organization and a traditional financial services organization. Is that something that you see happening in the near future? More collaboration, more between the fintech and the financial services? Or do you still see them working as silos or opposite parts of or maybe two sides of the same coin, one
So,
on it? Yeah.
So, Rita, let me try and take this in three parts. The first part, you asked about business and especially LI, life insurance or insurance being a highly... See, we've been talking to McKinsey, BCG and Oliver Wyman and some of these likes and closely tracking at what's happening in China, because China has gone through probably the closest we can refer to from a COVID, and they've also gone through SARS. So what we feel as a business, I think any epidemic does it result in penetration and distribution expansion. It helps tap latent need in the insurance sector, and more so health insurance for Ping Yang, which is the largest, one of the largest life insurance and general insurance health insurance provider. They've grown 82% post-COVID, but it's taken 2 to 3 months. So we'll have to wait as far as the insurance industry is concerned. And some of the demands are not only health, but other insurance items like, cyber safety, disability, loss of employment. Those are new generation, insurance products. In the life insurance space, it is going to be largely term. And most of the companies, if you see what has happened in March, April, in March, the demand went down by 32%. New businesses come down by 32%, including for LIC. And that is a function of, yes, COVID and its impact. But in that context, we do feel term life is what is going to be driving and not the unit linked based things, because the markets are quite down and volatile, which is going to be the, driver. That given that context of business, if you allow me, I'll just put a couple of slides, which is what we presented to the board as to what's our business continuity plan from an employee engagement, involvement, and therefore. And in fact, I've just, this Sunday, which went by, is when I converted that into an article and posted it on my LinkedIn. Because the intent is, we share among each other and learn from each other. There's nothing, competing in this space, because all of us have, unprecedented times. Absolutely. So if it is okay, I can probably run a couple of slides rather than talking, because the visual impact might convey the message across. I leave that call to you. If you're okay, I can just share a couple of slides and take this team through as to what we are doing, especially in the digital space, as far as employee engagement, involvement, alignment, recognition, all of these are concerned. While that's one part, the other part is, as of now, we've released the increment letters, the promotion letters, the salary correction letters. While the increments have been subdued, our belief is this is a time where we need to stand shoulder to shoulder with the employee and show our commitment to the employee agenda. We've also looked at not postponing it. While we are only the first in the insurance industry to have done this, because others are still debating or are postponing it to July. Our fundamental belief is we need to, show our value proposition to the employees. While what will, like some of the speakers said, what will it result in after 6 months if this continues? What are the impact? Yes, we have done our own scenario planning on that. But our first intent is to get on time, in full, release of the increment, bonus, salary corrections. While bonus is based on performance and therefore it's around 90% because March usually is around 20 to 30% of the sales of the year, which is forecasted, and therefore it has a significant impact.
Yeah.
So if you look at from a point of view of what are we doing for business continuity using digitization, it is as much as it's a bane, I see it as a boon from an HR point of view because we launched our entire digital platform, which is the new HRMS in the last 1 year. It was part of our 4-year strategy of which we have the 5-year strategy plan, which is called long range plan. And the HR agenda was to reimagine the employee experience and value proposition. So COVID couldn't have come in a more opportune time than now when we have launched in the last 6 to 12 months some of these digital assets across the employee life cycle, whether it's been pre-boarding right up to reward recognition, the entire life cycle covering. So what we are doing in this remote digital social distancing environment is for those campus joinees and lateral hires whom we have made offers and in some critical position will continue to make offers. Okay. How do we engage them even before they join us soon after they accept the offer is the first part, which is the pre-boarding and non-boarding. So we get using chats and blogs. We have a leadership connect with them, which is their functional head or reporting manager connects. That is one part of the plan. Second is a business of simulation where they take through some of the key initiatives, plans, which are not strategic, not confidential, but are open and available in public forum to assimilate the new employee. Plus, we have the team connect and induction on day one, which is where we take them through online using chats, blogs, and webinar, various policies, practices, and take them through what are the various knowledge management resources that they can leverage, what are the digital learning platforms they can leverage. And also for the sales campus, we want to create a sense of batch or bonhomie and network within them so that they can learn peer-to-peer, which is where we form a group of all the campus journeys and then have certain fun items, certain know each other items. Then they figure out people who have been in the same city, same college, graduation, all of that to bring in a certain amount of familiarity before they hit the road running on day one. The other most important one, which is coming very handy for us, is our Be Social platform. B1 is our overall HRMS brand. Be Social is a sub-brand of it, which is our social collaboration and knowledge management platform. That is where we've launched because of COVID the work, fun, and home initiatives, which is covering employees and families and kids. And some of that, which is what we are trying to do here, is we're running every fortnight some contest, and we've looked at our employee children age segmentation, and 80% of them are below 15 years, and therefore we've divided them into 3 groups: less than 5 years, 5 to 10 years, 10 to 15 years, including some things like drawing competition, cut and paste pictures, or write an essay, write a poem, create a banner. Those are things which we are running for them, which is what we try and engage the family and de-stress them. We are also looking at health because we own the space. We have the Guinness Book of World Record on Plankathon. So we're trying to run what kind of fitness, because sitting in front of the computer, your back, your neck, what kind of exercises, what kind of precautions can you take? And those are some initiatives which we run. And then we also have the digital recognition platform, which is our WOW platform, where anybody can acknowledge anybody. They don't have to wait for the greatest achievement to happen. It's like a pat on the back. Okay. Then it also results in quarterly reward in terms of points. And all of this, is socially amplified. You give a card to somebody, e-card, everybody in the company comes to know that somebody's got an e-card for this particular behavior, for this particular support, going the extra mile, extra, etc. Last but not least is our one-stop shop, which is our digital learning platform, which is where we are trying to look at learning in 3 compartments. One is, as far as skill learning is concerned, we are trying to use virtual classroom. And we are looking at e-learning simulations on selling skills. We have a video-based selling skills simulation for people to bring alive our brand positioning, which is life goals. Because we are focusing and we want to reposition the life insurance from a death benefit industry to a living benefits industry. And therefore, how do you sell solution? And therefore, how do you use the tools? How do you use the need assessment form, which can all be digital. And each of our salespeople are equipped with a tab. This is not because of COVID. This has been happening in the last 6 months, and thanks to the 5-year long range plan which Sanjeev Bajaj and late Nanu Pomani put in place. These are some initiatives which come out of that. Then we were also looking at, in the COVID situation, people are finding new ways to sell, because obviously you can't physically meet them. You have to close the deal, like you said, which is usually traditionally been a face-to-face meeting. How do they do it? How do they handle objections? How do they clarify? How do they set the pace? How do they do a elevator speech? Those things we are doing a bottom-up, crowdsourcing, where employees put some videos, put some documents saying this is what has worked for me. Then we curate that content and convert it into a learning instructional design led and distribute it to everybody to replicate those best practices. Then we have these micro videos which we have developed or which we have sourced from outside, both on leadership, personal effectiveness, as well as functional knowledge. And there those 10 5 minutes, 4 minutes micro videos are what we believe as performance support tools. So if you're wanting to get into a call and you want to handle an objection due to price, then we have a module there which is just click for 3-4 minutes, look at it, and then jog your mind and then get into that. So it's a performance support these micro videos are serving as. Apart from that, projects and collaboration and brainstorming has to happen. So in vSocial, we have threaded discussions, we have voting, we have task assignment, and those scripts are available for people to go through as to what has been the dialogue on various topics. So these are all the various digital platforms which we use to actually amplify, to actually connect, to actually virtually engage and involve. All of this said and done, the truth is still we have only 40-45% of the employees connected on it. Our challenge is going to be how do we get it to 90%? And that's going to be the biggest mindset change, which COVID will facilitate, because there is no other option, because the physical channel is closed. So that's what I'm very optimistic about, how digital is going to play a key differentiator for us as a company as against our competition in both serving customers.
So, Ruben, taking from your point, I see that you people are using digital and technology a lot for a lot of things that you all are doing internally. At the same time, you all are using it to build skill upgradation. You all are using it for engaging with your employees at different levels, etc. My question to Tojo and even Anil from Magic Bricks would be, given the scenario that we are now looking at lesser and lesser of consumption, like a point that was brought up by Prashant and Ruben both. How are we going to cope with that kind of a scenario? Externally, do we see digital as a tool to be used more like a business tool rather than an internal engagement tool? Tojo, especially for you, because you're in a very retail intensive organization where it is extremely people oriented, extremely face-to-face oriented. Are you looking at collaborating with fintech organizations to build that digital capability to move business from more of a retail scenario to a more digital scenario?
Yep.
Is that something that the organization is looking at?
Yeah. So again, one of the things that COVID has taught us is that necessity is the mother of invention. So, when we are pushed to a corner, we do come up with ideas and thoughts which we hadn't envisaged before. I'll just take a little bit of a digression and come back. For example, we ran the payroll, and if you were to ask me pre-COVID whether we can run payroll from out of our homes, I would have said out of question, madness. But when we were pushed to the corner and we had to run the payroll for 60,000 people with the whole payroll team distributed across and sitting across various places, we did manage it, and very correctly so, with the least number of errors and so on. So I'm saying when we are pushed to a corner, we suddenly realize that there are many things which are possible, which mentally we may constrain ourselves thinking that it's not possible. So that self-limiting belief that we sort of impose on ourselves as well as our team get sort of lifted. Coming specifically back to the two questions that you had asked, which is in terms of how much of digital are we going, and how are we looking at collaborating with others? It's both. Yes, one of the things that we have done is we have the Muthoot app. So while we very passionately believe in our, and like Anil said, our target customers are also people at the bottom of the pyramid, the unbanked, the bank, which the formal banking sector may not necessarily go after. So these are people who may not be digital friendly as yet. So one of the things that we have done is that as we have opened, one of the branch employee, the customer services executive, is purely dedicated for customers who walk in, they take the mobile, they download our app, the Muthoot Blue app, and show them how to transact business sitting in the confines of their home. Because it's done. Their KYC, their relationship, the number of times they have taken loan repayment, everything is there. So we have said that by sending an SMS to us, they can have a top up of the loan that over the loan that they've taken. So that's a dedicated person in each of the 3,600 branches to sort of educate, communicate, and give comfort to the customers that that's a possibility that they should leverage. And that's happening. That's, of course, taken off in a small manner, but I'm sure because it's a necessity at the end, at the side of the customer too, that he or she can't come out, it will get, COVID will force it and make it happen. And as regards tie-up with fintech companies, yes, that's something which is very aggressively being pursued. And unfortunately, at this point in time, I may not be able to name names, but it's very much there. So on multiple fronts for a company, as I mentioned earlier, which still strongly believes in face-to-face and employee connect, I mean the customer connect and doing business physically with the customer. No, we are shifting. We would continue to do that, but in addition, we would also ensure that the digital comes into play in a major way as we go forward. In fact, adding on to that, one of the other things that we are looking at as we speak, while automation was something which we were very aggressively pursuing, one of our four pillars of excellence, which is digitization. What we have done during the lockdown has been that we have got each of the, that is specific for the head office, to get each of the HOD to look at the entire processes that the function is carrying on, and looking at what could be automated out of that. And if we were to automate it, what sort of reskilling, upskilling of the people should be done. So that's something which we have done now, converging on taking inputs from each of the functional department heads and looking at what are the possibilities for automation and what are the kind of upskilling and reskilling of our people that we need to do, again in a post-COVID scenario. So COVID, unfortunately, while it's very unfortunate of what's happening, but on these aspects, it has pushed us to coming up with solutions and thinking out of the box.
Yeah.
No, I think, Rita, what I would say is, from a business point of view, when you say fintech, I think the two realities are digitization and virtualization. And when we look at what is going to be the synergies, whether it's payment service providers are going to be critical, because collections and renewals and new business payments is something which is getting stronger, and those engagements are getting much deeper. If you look at some of the things like video KYC or medicals, which are done on remote through various apps, and therefore some of these requirements which are regulatory in nature are being met through some of these collaborations which are going to happen. But at the same time, I think on the other side, how do you variabilize these costs, and therefore how do you ensure that you are not putting in capex, and therefore when you want to plug in, you have the flexibility, is the other area where nature of contracts are getting revisited, and therefore the business trying to de-risk. Apart from you looking at, we've started an exercise called start, stop, continue, and then look at what you want to stop, what you want to continue, what you want to start, and therefore what is urgent and important, both from a cost and investment perspective. These are some of the business realities. Therefore, some of the startups are becoming attractive proposition, because they come at a certain price. They have certain innovative products, and therefore there's a willingness to experiment because, like he said, necessity is the mother of invention.
Yeah, 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 true, true. Anil, would you like to add to this?
So, Rita, you remember that, a year and a half back, this sector, specifically Indian online real estate sector, to be very specific, got hit by, RERA, GST, demonetization, all of that. And it was in the path of recovery, and, it came to a specific level, and then came this COVID-19. Now, if I have to talk about this customer's experience, how do builders, they would actually go ahead and sell their inventory. For that, we realized, and it started not necessarily now, a year back, we started, the entire property is available in augmented reality, in virtual reality kind of a mode. That means you need not actually go on a site visit, but there would be a link shared with you. You can identify this is how the property looks like. And if I have to book my flat on the 10th floor, this is how it'll look like. And this is the bedroom dimension and all of that, with the usage of those, technical and technological stuff available. That is what, we have developed, and we have enabled our builder community. And indirectly, that's how we have transferred the technology in the hands of potential customer. Similarly, I'm sure, you have seen right now in Facebook and multiple other digital platforms, the builders have started, opening up new schemes. You don't need to pay, during this COVID lockdown period, you just need to pay token money, and rest of the 95% of the money you can pay at the time of possession of the flat. Now, that's a great innovation to me, specifically, when we talk about real estate sector. Now, how organizations like Magic Bricks can actually enable and, still, send across those potential leads to this customer is what something the sales teams, they got to completely uncash at this moment. And I'm sure, they are working in this area. Talking about, specifically people-related processes, spot on. We also had similar kind of doubt in the beginning when we were asked to work from home. The bigger question was what is work from home for support functions like admin, for marketing, for HR. And I think Toto has rightly touched one point, and any HR person would really be a little nervous during the payroll processing time. But in our case also, surprisingly, suppose in normal life scenario, probably the error rate would be roughly around 2%, 3%. Coincidentally, people were little hyper, and even though they were spread across different geographies, different cities, it ultimately resulted into zero payroll error. So to me, that's a good indication of HR or support functions, their efficacy going higher during work from home kind of a thing. Training, besides other thing, of course, the e-learning module and everything, we also thought, how do we actually engage people and ensure through this engagement process that learning is also optimal. And hence, we have also gone to the extent, in our induction processes, we would have, our virtual games and things like that. But now we have also, kind of encouraged our people, our colleagues, to go for PUBG kind of a game. Because, if you look at our average age of our colleagues, it hovers around 29 years. A relatively young bunch of people. So engagement experience means different to different category of people. And hence, we realize, let this learning also happen and let this engagement also happen. But how can we, cater to their needs through those games? And I think, these are some of the stuff with the help of, technology, with the help of digitized kind of a setup, we have been able to, succeed and successfully run business.
Yeah. Yeah. Akhila, is there something you would like to? Yeah. Please, Anil, go ahead.
Yeah, I think I just want to go back to the point on the fintech and the bank or fintech financial services collaboration or opportunities to partner. Yeah, I think there is a huge scope, right? Just because the fintechs have all the most of their technology processes and customer onboarding processes or customer servicing processes, all of those are already digitized. As Ruben was referring to something like video KYC, we have been doing for more than 2.5 months, fully production environment, whereas traditional bank or some NBFCs may not have that capability today. So it will be a good opportunity for fintechs and uh, the financial services companies to collaborate, because one of the challenges for fintechs or a small NBFC like ours is when you have an asset size which is below 500 crores, the liquidity is a big issue. So even though the RBI has given the TLTRO 2.0 and they had an outlay of 25,000 crores specifically for the financial services sector and NBFCs, only 12,500 odd crores was subscribed to, and out of which only 15% is supposed to come to smaller NBFCs. So in a situation, and even then the banks are not very open, right? Like they still have their reservations. They want, I mean, they are only wanting to look at AAA investment grade bonds or NCDs. And if you are a NBFC like us, which is below 500 crores, a lot of those things may not be readily available. So in some cases, even though the intent from the regulator is there, the intent from the banks itself to provide liquidity to the smaller NBFCs isn't to be seen yet. And that's something we are trying to sensitize the banks to and give.
We had Ruben's daughter, I think, coming into the video for a second.
Sorry.
Hi to
No,
her.
no problem. I think that's
it's a part of our work life now.
That's perfectly normal, right?
World.
Perfectly normal now.
we who have encroached in the space of family.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, well said.
So just to conclude what I'm trying to say. So I think it is an ideal time which will force the fintechs, because the liquidity is not easily available, to look for partnerships. The financial services companies, because they need to take a technological leap, which normally takes a long period of time to make that leap quickly. But in both cases, there should be more than just what is the immediate need. There should be, a spirit of partnership, collaboration that is just beyond the need-based relationship that seems logical right now. If these relationships and these partnerships have to be successful, and that's where a differentiator on the financial services company or the bank and the fintech should be something that each one recognizes in the other, so that there is a good basis of collaboration and partnership.
Absolutely. Any one of your more? Yes.
Rita, only thing which I wanted to, as a closing remark from my side, we look at it. We've had multiple deliberations, and we're looking at this like, after the Second World War, women's participation in workforce increased. After 9/11, it reshaped transportation and security policies like that. Our understanding, what will COVID do, post-COVID will do is it will redefine delivery services, make it maybe more hyper-local, like you already see Dunzo in operation and etc. It will also encourage and increase awareness and intake on preventive healthcare. It will also push for more personalization of services, right? And last but not least, the questions which are being asked is, do we need such large office space, cabin, infrastructure, when now work from home is, challenging all of that? And last but not least, I think whatever is already done in the West will become a reality in India. Different type of contractual employment, whether it is gig workers, whether it is part-time, whether it is job sharing. Those are the various conversations which are starting to take shape, and probably a post-COVID, these will be the new, factors which will change the face of the, commercial world for times to come.
So, would you like to add to the trends that Ruben has possibly listed out?
Yeah. So if you see, there was very limited acceptance of work from home, at least for a conventional, traditional business house. And I'm including many in that. There has been a significant change. If you look at Zoom, on which we are doing conference, about a week, 2 weeks back, there was significant news around security lapse on Zoom platform. Yet, everyone is using it. So there is a relatively more higher level of flexibility on information security, which became so tight at one point of time that, I had to, in one of the organizations I was consulting, I had to give them a logic that you can do your bank transactions on mobile. Why can't employees see certain kind of job openings on their mobiles in the company? And they were not open to it. Gig economy will definitely, because now what regional delivery, localized delivery, what is important is how do I serve my customer? Whether it is an employee or a gig worker, it doesn't make any difference. In fact, a gig worker gives much more flexibility to the organizations.
Yeah.
Much more flexibility. So these will definitely increase. And a huge effort on investment on automation. Companies that shied away from investing in automation, whether it is robotic process automation or on manufacturing side of automation, because it is expensive in the beginning, it requires certain kind of capital investment, they will open up their investment and budgets for automation significantly.
Akhila, would
Otherwise,
you like to
the other thing is, it will be extremely difficult for a bank or an NBFC to compete with Anil kind of firms, which is purely digital model and a fraction of cost.
Yeah, I think, just to add, I think it'll sort of really change the way in which how I think all of us really operate, from sort of the physical spaces, use of air conditioning, really sort of, all the hygiene and standard methods that we sort of really maintain. How do we sort of really look at seating plans, for example, in offices, the benefits and policies that we sort of roll out to our employees. So I think fundamentally, how we sort of really look at employee engagement, how do we sort of really look at, employee well-being, physical, mental, all of that, I think will sort of gain greater focus as sort of people come back to work.
Anil, would you like to add to that? Anil from Magic Bricks. I'm sorry, I'm going to.
So, Rita, right now, if I have to look at 3 phases, what comes to my mind is how do we survive right now in the current scenario? And post that will come, how do we and how faster we actually recover back? And third thing would be how do we excel? Probably, can we go back to the earlier days of kind of growth rate and things like that. So in that current scheme of thing, I think the spot on. I think Ruben has very rightly identified. Gig economy is definitely going to grow. It was anyhow existing before, but when there is a lot of pressure on budgets and when there are initiatives around cost arbitrage and things like that, I see more and more number of mid-level and senior level folks getting replaced with probably those gig workers at a leadership level also. I do not see why there should not be a specific percentage of the leadership or management team replaced with gig workers, typically as a natural process. No need to go for any retrenchment, but if there is any attrition in that level, why not replace? Because you have plenty of people available with right kind of an experience. So that's here to stay, and I see definitely that economy growing.
How are your businesses geared up for maybe a rebound of a COVID-19 kind of a scenario? And I leave this question open to all of you all.
I need to just, the trends and everything have been very well captured by Ruben, Prashant and Anil in their summary. So when the pandemic will end is like an open question, and I don't think we'll all feel comfortable till the a vaccine comes into place. So I think what everyone is looking at a recovery when they started, most people thought is a V-shaped recovery, right? Like this is a 2 to 4 week blip and we're all back up and running. Now people are looking at maybe a U-shaped recovery or some sort of a W-shaped recovery, or more likely what will more resemble will be an L-shaped recovery where it will take time for the economy to rebound. And you might see a second wave of infections once lockdowns are lifted, and you don't know what is the impact. I mean, we already saw it in a very compressed manner, what happened in Singapore, where they kind of opened it up and then had to lock it down with the increase in cases. So the recovery of this may not be as quick as we initially anticipated. It may be much longer. And I think some trends are here to stay, right? Like the work from home, everyone's starting to question why so much fixed expense. The focus is to try and figure out a methodology, be it gig workers or be it work from home or smaller corporate spaces. The idea is to make sure that you can you can increase your cost so try to make your fixed cost variable. That's the more of a trend line. Whatever is your fixed cost, if there is a sudden destruction in demand or a sudden drop in demand for whatever reason, previously most of these were hypotheticals for us. Now it has become real. So now the focus is to try and make sure that most of your costs are variable and are in line with your sales and revenues, so that if they do not exist at the same scale as you had built up earlier, you will be able to just immediately go down. Yeah. But I personally am just looking forward to the day I'll open my corporate office back as a lounge where I'll just have a nice barista, get a Starbucks experience. People will come once a week, just have a nice lounging, bonding time with some of their peers, and then go back and do their most productive work like Anil and Tojo said, with 0 error rates on their payroll processing from their home. So it probably, that's where I'm looking forward to. And maybe, I don't know when it will happen, but I am just excited to see that day.
Yeah.
So I'm sorry, I'll probably have to step out. Thanks a lot for everybody for your time. It was a great interaction.
I thank each one of you all for being a part of this panel. We would be sharing the video recording of this entire discussion on our social media platform and on our LinkedIn, and we will also share it with you all so that you all can share it with your network and your target base as well. It was great talking to each one of you, getting an interesting perspective from all of you all with regards to this scenario. We look forward to meeting on many more such e-panel discussions that we'll be organizing. Thanks, one.
Thank you. And Rita, one final request. If you could share everybody's contact coordinates with each other.
Absolutely, I'll do that.
That'll be great.
Very happy to introduce each one of you all with each other.
That's right.
Email. I will just share it. And you all are comfortable if we share the phone numbers as well?
Absolutely, no problem.
Of course, yeah.
Absolutely. Great.
Thank you.
We'll
great. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. Good.
Thanks, everyone.
And good getting all to meet each other. Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks
everyone.
A lot.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thanks.